Welcome back to our next Respect Project talk. I'm so excited to be here with my friends at Special Olympics. So specifically excited to introduce you to some athletes and some inspirational figures at Special Olympics. Jason, Megan, RJ, Hannah, and Mackenzie, welcome. Thank you so much for making time today to talk about a very specific topic within the Special Olympics community, which is we want to inspire inclusive work environments. And we've talked a little bit about that with different organizations. I want to talk specifically with you, Megan, about how you became involved with Special Olympics.
Yeah, thank you. First, thank you so much for having us, Elizabeth. This is a wonderful opportunity. I've been involved with Special Olympics for 10 years. I actually saw a job posting for a development assistant many years ago, randomly after meeting a gentleman who is a coach and a longtime volunteer on an airplane ride. And so I saw a job posting open and just knew it was a place that I wanted to get involved with. So I ended up being hired as our director of events and have moved through the development and fundraising space and have been in the CEO role for 3 years. And it is hands down the most rewarding job certainly I've ever had, but I would argue anyone could ever have. It's just a wonderful place to be, filled with many athletes and opportunities to learn and grow.
Jason, we've talked a lot about inclusive work environments, and I am surprised to see that the statistics are still so low. Recent research shows that only 18% of people with intellectual disabilities have full-time employment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the topic. And I know specifically we want to talk about jobs that Mackenzie and Hannah have had, but if you could enlighten us a little bit more on that research.
Yeah, employment for people with intellectual disabilities is incredibly important, and it starts with leadership, meaning that our movement is led by athletes, and we've got 3 fabulous leaders on the Respect Project talk with us today, and they could certainly talk about what they do to inspire not only citizens across the world, but particularly organizations and the C-suite of those organizations to embrace an inclusive environment for people with intellectual disabilities. We've got some fabulous partners. They range from Bank of America to Toyota to ESPN, and of course, one that we'll talk about today, which is United Airlines, and every one of them learn from our athletes because we promote a very much a unified environment where people with and without intellectual disabilities learn together, they work together, they progress together. And we found through some of the research, and you've cited some of it, that an inclusive environment is a much more productive culture for a business or an organization that has employees. So just to give you a little bit of a snippet, you've got 2 times more likely to meet or exceed financial targets if you're an organization that embraces inclusion. They're 3 times more likely to be high performing, 6 times more likely to be innovative and agile. And what I really, really like is the 8 times more likely to achieve better business outcomes. So it really does pay, almost literally, to be an inclusive organization, but not just talk the talk. You've got to walk the walk. It's one thing to say that you're an inclusive environment. It's another thing to actually be an inclusive environment. And we look forward to talking more with you about that.
Yeah, I really would love to hear from Hannah specifically because, I'm curious how your work as an athlete prepared you for the job that you did at United and what your experience working with United was like.
Yes, so my experience with United Airlines was the best thing that has ever happened in my lifetime. Reason why I say that because I'm a Surface ambassador for United Airlines. So a big shout out to all my Surface ambassadors. I have to say, so woo-hoo on that. So congrats to guys, we made it to our 1-year anniversary for United Airlines recently. I believe on October 11th of this year. So we are on the second hub for United Airlines. It's one of those like largest spots yet, I think, but let alone there might be somebody else who's maybe watching who would say and argue with me that, Chicago will be the largest hub there is for United Airlines. I'll argue against him to say I think it's going to be downfall. I think that when I first got the job, I was invited to apply for United Airlines through Stephanie Lockman. And after that, it's been a secured job and I nailed the interview. And I think it's the interview and then the people who you work with makes it a lot better.
Yeah. How are they helpful in supporting you to succeed and to elevate you and make you feel like you could grow and succeed and be supported there?
Well, they really took their time to actually listen to me. No surprise there. So because they took an initiative to be a partner, a global partner, if you will, for Special Olympics in general. And I think United Airlines to be a global partner for Special Olympics. And it's them who supports us by giving us time and to figure things out and be letting us learn at the level that we are at now and just to apply it a little bit more to achieve more of greatness. And I see more greatness at United Airlines. I really want more than anything else in this world is to be a flight attendant at United Airlines. At first, I did not know anything, absolutely nothing about the airport industry until later on in my life. And then after that, it's been like smooth sailing and I really want to be a flight attendant and that's new and exciting. And I'm looking forward to the next chapters of, United Airlines. And I just think it's just fantastic. And I just love them very much because they are like a third family, basically, after my second family, which is Special Olympics.
I love them too, because I think that that's the point we want to talk about is how can we inspire other companies to lead the way and to change the inclusion revolution. I'm curious from the perspective of you, Megan, could you talk about which companies and industry sectors are leading the way? I know we're going to talk about ESPN a little bit, but if there are some other corporations that have been really inspiring and progressive and making a difference.
Yeah, United is certainly one. Bank of America, GD Finish Line. I mean, there are many organizations that have not only started the conversation, but are really walking the walk, talking the talk, and I think that is so important. And we've seen it across the board. Other organizations and industries that I think through Special Olympics have made great strides is really within the healthcare industry. Through Special Olympics, we found that there's great disparities when it comes to the health outcomes of people with intellectual disabilities. And so I think in the healthcare world, we've seen a lot of progress there, not only in working on hiring, but also listening to, learning from people with intellectual disabilities. So that's another industry. There's a lot of work to be done. I mean, as Jason said, we want to make sure that it is not something that is taken lightly or just done to check a box. But it's something that really is taken seriously from the hiring process all the way to onboarding and making sure that it's an organization where people with disabilities will find success and have equal opportunity to have success as every other person in that organization.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really want to talk about is differentiating between the companies that claim that they're inclusive and the ones that actually are inclusive. But I think it's continuing to have the conversation and inspiring corporations and teaching them, like Hanna said, to listen and help them figure out how they can navigate this so that they can actually become inclusive as opposed to claiming that they're inclusive. Mackenzie, I see you nodding. I want to hear a little bit about ESPN and your experience with them.
Mackenzie hasn't worked at ESPN, but she's worked with Finish Line and also at Howdy Ice Cream right now, which is a wonderful organization locally that also employs people with disabilities. Maybe you want to share your experience there.
RJ is ESPN. Okay, I see. Thank you for the note.
Yeah, they can switch it up.
I was like, I have another job I didn't even know. So, like Megan said, I did work at a shoe store, and that was really, I'm a shoe freak. So, I was like, hey, maybe this will be a really good place to work for me because they they help Special Olympics, and I just wanted to see if that would be a good fit, but it was not because of my shoe fetish. And my checks would just go into shoes and all of that stuff. It was a really good opportunity to work there. But I found this other job, Howdy's ice cream, homemade ice cream. And it's actually a gentleman that started a franchise in Dallas, Texas. And he just wanted to start I believe he has Down syndrome, and he wanted to start a ice cream business. And so I just started working there as a shift manager. I didn't before like being just working, I wanted to have a leadership role. Just because I'm a good leader and I feel like I can help others really well. And I didn't really have the confidence to sign or apply for a manager position at the time. But when I saw like Howdy's ice cream was coming to Denver, I was all like, oh, maybe this is a good opportunity for my leadership skills and being a shift manager. And I love this job so much. And I know a lot of people that work there that are athletes too. So being able to be with them and all of that stuff in a work environment is super cool.
How were they helpful to you? How did they inspire you and support you and help you elevate you to grow in the company, and how could they do better? I mean, that's, I think, a part of the conversation too, is how can we inspire companies to do better? What can we teach them today about how they can make a difference and be more inclusive?
Talking about the Special Olympics side or Howdy's ice cream side?
Howdy's.
Howdy's. I really like the interview process was really cool to see. It was just an open conversation. It's not like you have to sit down and give them the resume. And I really enjoyed that because it's pretty scary going into an interview and not really knowing what to answer. All they say is bring your resume. And that was really helpful just to see. And then that's how I got a good vibe of them, like being able to work with people with intellectual disabilities. It was smooth. And when I met my boss, he's like the sweetest guy ever. He was like running super late, and I thought I missed my appointment. He's like, oh no, it's on me, it's on me. And I was like, oh, okay. And then afterwards I just felt really good working in that setting, just because how welcoming they are, and good vibes to me for other people or like my go-to thing. So if I'm not really feeling a like safety or just feeling negative, I probably wouldn't go. But this being interviewed by him was really good to see. And so
yeah, I think that's a lot of what we're talking about today, which is inspiring others to approach people with intellectual disabilities with the support and the guidance and the inspiration that they need to succeed, just like anybody else needs to, have that support in the work environment. So now that I've got it straight, RJ, let's talk a little bit about ESPN and about your college experience and how it shaped you into the employee that you are today.
Yes. So my experience with ESPN started when I started school at the University of Alabama. I studied sports journalism and communication studies. And my junior year, I interned with Special Olympics Maryland. So connecting it back to Special Olympics, I got to go out to Seattle for the 2018 USA Games, and got to work with ESPN out there. My first ever on-camera interview was with SportsCenter's Kevin Negandhi. So of course I was really nervous because I've looked up to him for so long. but that kind of spiraled into a friendship and mentorship. And then senior year came and I applied for an internship at ESPN. And I was lucky enough to be assigned to the X Games, who also has a very close connection with Special Olympics with their unified event, and got to work with that. Got to go out to Minnesota for the X Games, work with the Special Olympics event. And now even with my role with SONA, Special Olympics North America, I still am on meetings and conversations with ESPN for unified events. So my experience in college all linked back to Special Olympics and got me to ESPN and now back to SONA.
Well, now since we're talking a little bit more about Special Olympics and not just the work environments and inclusivity, can you share with people a little bit more about the values that Special Olympics holds, and just a little bit share with people today a little bit more about Special Olympics?
Yeah, so I started Special Olympics back when I was a little kid, and I can say without a doubt, I would not be where I am professionally or personally without Special Olympics. And Special Olympics is my first full-time job post-graduation. And they've impacted me so much that my dream job was to be a play-by-play college football analyst for ESPN. But it has since grown into, I want to pursue a career with Special Olympics, and one day I want to be the first athlete to be a president CEO of a state program. That's my long-term goal now. So everything is, Special Olympics has done everything for me.
Yeah, I love hearing that, and I love hearing that your dreams and your goals are just expanding and expanding, and I know that you're going to achieve everything that you want to achieve, that you believe in achieving, because the one thing I've learned about Special Olympics athletes is that nothing limits them, nothing stands in their way. And you guys are so inspiring to me personally. Hanna, can you share a little bit of how you began your relationship with Special Olympics?
Yes, I started when I was 13 years old. I did school as well myself. I never went to college at all. I don't have a degree at all. I graduated in 2014. Here at high school, so proud Eagles over here. Woohoo! Yes, love the Eagles on that front. But I started Special Olympics at the age of 13, and my parents and I found out about a really awesome ski program. So my two sports that I do for Special Olympics is ski racing and cycling. All my life, I've been a swimmer to myself and a basketball player when I was in school for 4 years, but I made the JV team for my swim team, and I made that unified. So I made my junior varsity swim team unified by just being there and being the only one there as an intellectual disability myself. I also have Down syndrome. That's why I made it unified for swimming when I was in high school. But now, since I'm out of high school and in the Special Olympics, well, now since the age of 13, I'm 27 now, and all my life has been nothing but leadership opportunities after another leadership opportunity. So all the opportunities I had was through Special Olympics. I first started out to work for Olive Garden. So I first started there before COVID even happened. And then after that, then I moved into United Airlines. And that was my second job back into the workforce after being laid off for a year at Olive Garden as a hostess. And now after that, I also landed a job for SOI, Special Olympics International. So I'm a fellow for the youth and education team. So I represent them now too. So I am that as well. I'm also a Special Olympics Sergeant Schleifer International Global Messenger and also a Health Messenger. And I also done a lot of health trainings in the SONA sports conferences as well, like in Minnesota, and I've been to Salt Lake City because of Special Olympics. And so all my life has been nothing but inclusiveness and
Yeah.
opportunities after another opportunity.
Yes. And I love hearing what you're saying, because it's the one of the many things I would want to say to corporations that wish that they were more inclusive, is that they're the ones that are going to benefit from having people in their companies that have the kind of leadership, passion, fearlessness, joy, looking out for others. You know, you guys, every time I spend time with you guys, athletes with Special Olympics, you look out for each other. You lift each other up, you make room for each other, you celebrate each other, you don't leave each other behind, you strengthen each other. And those qualities can only benefit any company out there that wishes they were more inclusive, but doesn't know how to do it. So, you know, we want to give people a chance. And I just want to ask you, Jason, what are some top considerations that organizations should think of when they want to be more inclusive? They haven't yet really started, walking the talk. They may claim that they are, they may claim that they're not, but they want to be. What are some things for them to consider, and how can they change to be more inclusive?
Thank you for that question. There are so many things that companies can do, and the leadership of companies can do to really embrace inclusion. And it really does start with being honest with yourselves as an organization and a leadership team, first in understanding what's in your policy as an employer, and really understanding what it is to be an inclusive organization, not just for one disability, but other and all disabilities. So, you know, with people with intellectual disabilities, in many cases, you don't necessarily see the disability like you would with a physical disability. And those are two very different things. Of course, they do overlap, and we have athletes with intellectual disabilities that also have physical disabilities, and vice versa. But it's really important to understand the nuances and the big differences that they need to understand in order to really become an inclusive environment. So being honest with themselves is absolutely critical. Rewriting their policy is incredibly important, but not just rewriting the policy in a boardroom. Really invite somebody or many people with intellectual disabilities in so that they can provide the right guidance, the mentoring that is so important for leadership to understand, so that a policy can be truly inclusive and start the process for the organization to not only embrace inclusion, but to really propagate the message of inclusion, not just with their own employees, but also with their partners, with folks within the community, other policymakers that are important to their business, because the work environment is not so disconnected from the community in which those companies work, and obviously the employees live. So one does bleed over into the other. And then also working with local governments to make sure that the laws are conducive to an inclusive environment. One thing I really love about United Airlines, and many of our partners as well, is that it's not a gesture like a token gesture to say that we're inclusive and we're bringing athletes in just to check that box. United Airlines really does value our athletes and people with intellectual disabilities to help their business become more successful and more approachable for all consumers that are out there. And it's really an applause that I'd like to give to them, because they do have many of our athletes in as Special Olympics service ambassadors. That program was launched about 2 years ago during National Disability Employment Awareness Month, which just ended in October. And our athletes are part-time employees that help within the lobby area. They welcome customers in and help them find the check-in kiosks. They help with, luggage and understanding the TSA process. So they are very much an integral part of the business. And then we have many other partners that are also embracing it. We just struck a partnership with a media company called Minute Media, which is the parent company of Fansided, Mental Floss, the Players Tribune, and we're working together to learn from each other. And they're bringing our athletes in, and we're bringing them into our family. That's the type of partner that Special Olympics needs. And that's the type of partner that our athletes and people with ID all over the world deserve.
Absolutely. I don't want to be controversial in any way, but is it possible that I could ask you which companies and industry sectors are not inclusive?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily a particular industry. I would say that there are a variety of retail organizations that I'd like to see be much more inclusive in nature. I think there's a bit of intimidation or even fear in having people with intellectual disabilities work with consumers on the front lines, and they need to get past that because there is absolutely nothing to be intimidated about, nothing to be afraid of. People with intellectual disabilities are just like everyone else because we're all different in a variety of different ways. And that's what makes us all similar, is that we're different. Each and every one of us. So I know it's really asking the retail industry to think differently about the recruiting process, and certainly to be open to learning, because our athletes, particularly Hanna, Mackenzie, RJ, and the thousands of other athletes that the movement has, have so much to teach, and we have so much to learn from them, and I learn every day from them.
Yeah, I think there are invisible lines that need to be erased, like the application process. I mean, it's confusing, it's intimidating, it's convoluted, and it makes it nearly impossible to achieve your dreams and overcome those obstacles. And I think, I don't know what you guys think, Mackenzie, I mean, you were talking a little bit about that, how intimidating it is to interview or to do an application. And I think that that's a really human feeling, and especially with people with intellectual disabilities, making that less intimidating, less confusing, more accessible, and not having these invisible lines that we know are there that need to be eradicated. I just want to talk about growing and how you guys just as a community promote each other's growth, and how necessary that is within corporations, that they're so worried about their bottom line, and that, it's like you said, Jason, I think they would benefit from knowing how progressive especially Special Olympics community is in wanting to support one another to succeed, and how that can only affect businesses in a positive way. Megan, I just wanted to hear a little bit more from your perspective. What advice would you give young people with intellectual disabilities who want to seek employment in the future, and and where can they go within Special Olympics to find the support to do so?
Yeah, I encourage, a beautiful thing about Special Olympics is that we are all over. So go to your local Special Olympics program. First of all, get involved there. I mean, I think the beautiful thing about Special Olympics is that we are, as you've heard, a very athlete-led movement. So I like to say we have opportunities for athletes to lead in whatever way they choose. So just as it's true for job roles, not every single job role is perfectly suited for every single person. And not every single leadership role is something that is desirable for each particular athlete. So we have athletes who have opportunities to speak publicly and love that, thrive on sharing their message. We also have athletes who are serving vital roles as coaches and mentors and volunteers, employees, fellows. So I encourage athletes or individuals with intellectual disabilities who are interested in getting involved, use Special Olympics as a resource. Hanna, Mackenzie, and myself, actually, we spend a lot of time out there talking to companies about what we call the unified leadership approach, which is really the idea that people without disabilities, the majority group, can learn from, value, enable people with intellectual disabilities. And so Hanna and Mackenzie are phenomenal advocates out there, really talking to more companies about what can be done at all levels. And going back to the part about what can employers do, really looking at it from the starting point. So we talked about the application, the interview process, things such as say what you mean and mean what you say. So if you say in the interview process, I'll get back with you in 2 days, that means someone is expecting to hear from you within 2 days. Whereas often in society will say, oh, I'll get back with you in a little bit. And that may mean a little bit or a couple weeks from now. I think everyone can really examine it's kind of so-called societal cues and social norms that we see that employers might be nervous about. As an example, if you see someone not making eye contact or fidgeting during the interview process, that might be a red flag, but let's examine ourselves. And I would encourage athletes to talk openly about that. I think, Mackenzie shared a little bit about making sure the interviewer makes you feel comfortable enough, because even just disclosing the fact that you have a disability is something that is part of that interview process, but you want to make sure that the person who is interviewing feels comfortable. So again, there's a lot that can be done, but with athletes, I encourage you to do your research, see who is hiring, and if they're not, ask why. Every company has a lot to learn from our athletes and people with disabilities.
Well, I love this initiative within Special Olympics to get out there and educate corporations on how they can be truly inclusive as opposed to claiming that they're inclusive. I just want to hear from Mackenzie, RJ, and Hanna. What advice would you, let's start with you, Mackenzie. What advice would you give other young people with an intellectual disability that want to go to work, that are intimidated, but you are happy working, and what advice would you give to another young person like yourself?
Just go out of your comfort zone and just be yourself. It's okay to be yourself, and don't hide your disability or anything, because most likely you're gonna be the best co-worker or worker at your job, because you're all of your life people had said no, you won't be able to achieve what you really want to do. And so just overcome that saying that, oh, I'm not good enough to have a job, because you are capable. And just find the job that you really love and the people there that really respect you and care for you and will help you become a good co-worker or something like that.
And I just have to brag on Mackenzie to make sure that everyone knows Mackenzie is also, in addition to being a phenomenal employee, an advocate, she's also the first co-chair of a board of directors, Special Olympics directors in the globe. So she is the co-chair of Special Olympics Colorado's board, and just really leads both at her workplace amongst other Special Olympics athletes, and really guides what I do and what our organization does every single day. So she has a lot to teach others, and is a wonderful resource.
Can you talk a little bit about that, Mackenzie, and share with us a little bit some of those responsibilities and some of what that work looks like for you?
Yeah. So during COVID, we Megan and my co-chair John Shuckey contacted me saying, hey, we're actually kind of looking for a unified co-chair stuff for our board of directors. And of course I was like, oh yes, that sounds really fun, and what a great opportunity, not knowing that I was going to be the first athlete ever to sit on a role of a co-chair for Special Olympics in general. And what that looks like for Special Olympics Colorado, it looks like going to HR meetings, going to the development meetings, finance, all of these meetings. That is super cool to see, because I always was curious what the process is for competitions and stuff, and not really knowing how they make that happen. So it's really cool seeing how all of that stuff comes together, and then just sitting and listening to what needs to change. I sit on our athlete input council, and the first year that I did that, I was all like, hey, we used to partner up with a sandwich place, and they always gave us white bread, and I was like, well, if they're trying to make us healthy, why can't they give us wheat bread? And so we changed that for a couple years, and just seeing all of that come into place, and having an athlete voices heard was really cool to see. Yeah, and this is a great opportunity. I don't know where I would be if I didn't have Special Olympics, just because I was like the shy kid in the corner with my hoodie up, not really talking. Always wanted to play sports and all of that stuff, but I wasn't really comfortable playing on a general ed team. And so my mom found Special Olympics, and after that I just kind of said I can just be myself. I don't need to look like anybody else. I don't need to act like a certain way. I can just be myself, and Special Olympics has helped me in so many ways. Being able to come out of my comfort zone and being able to have a job and being able to drive. Just having those like independent skills that Special Olympics has taught me, and just coming out of my comfort zone a lot.
And I just love hearing what you're saying, and I know how much you guys always give that to each other. It's like, you're given all of what you just expressed, and then you pass it on, and that community that Special Olympics is, that family. I see you nodding, RJ. I know you were talking a lot about how you've progressed also in your life through Special Olympics, and the work that you're doing. And so what advice would you give a young person who wants to feel as expansive as what you guys are expressing, and is struggling to overcome some of their fears and feeling, the limitations that they feel around them or that are being put upon them?
Yeah, I would tell that athlete or individual with an intellectual disability to be authentic, applying for jobs or whatever it may be. Being yourself is the biggest most important lesson I've learned applying to different jobs and whatnot. And also dream big and dream hard. If your dreams and goals don't sound crazy, they're probably not crazy enough and big enough. I've always learned that. I mean, growing up, I always told people I was going to work for ESPN. Nobody believed me. They said, I had people tell me, you have a disability. Nobody's going to want to see you on TV. I'm like, watch me one day. And I was employed by ESPN. So I just tell them to be themselves and dream big and network. Create a community around yourself of people that believe in you, push you to be the best and expect nothing less. Because when you do that, anything is possible. Because I can do things you can't do, and you can do things I can't do. So when we put those two things together, extraordinary things happen.
That's right. I'm giving you a round of applause. Thank you so much for saying that, because I feel so privileged to be in Special Olympics family, because your leadership and your inspiration and your resilience and your passion and everything that both you just expressed, Mackenzie and RJ, you guys teach that to me every time we talk, every time we communicate, every time we share, every time I get to witness you guys and competing or progressing in your lives, and sharing that with each other has really changed my life. And so I would ask you collectively, why should people with and without intellectual disabilities work together? Why, and how can we express that to other corporations or all the corporations out there? You want to take that question, Jason or Hannah?
Follow Hannah, if you don't mind, because Hannah's got this down pat.
Okay, well, I got some answers. I know that I didn't say half of everything that I've written down or what have you. So I guess I would say is we are stronger when we work kind of together. We have to be patient and open-minded, because that's part of it, is to be open-minded, and we're all stronger by working kind of together. So that's always important to remember that, to be patient, open-minded, and we're all listeners. I would just want to add that in there because I forgot to mention that earlier. And that's also highly important for like leadership employment based as well. And then it also like improves like morals and job satisfaction as well. Like it kind of goes kind of together as well, because every job has the level of being satisfied. And the thing is, I love what I do. I love working at United Airlines. I love, working for SOY fellowship and have the satisfaction behind it, and it also embodies all sorts of different people there as well. And to go along with that thought too is just keep trying until you'll find the formula that works for you guys, because everybody is working on something every day. I am not a perfect person. I have flaws. Yes, I have flaws. I get it. Like sometimes not a lot of people want my opinion, but I give it anyways because I care. That's just who I am as a person. And to go without saying is discipline and confidence is also part of it too. And because, well, without the discipline and the confidence, then who are we? What do we do? Honestly, like we are the Special Olympics movement, for crying out loud. And I say that saying a lot of saying crying out loud, because it's true. Because if you don't have, confidence and, what's the word that I was talking about was discipline. Without that, then who are we policing? Nobody. In my opinion, I think Special Olympics shows discipline and confidence in everybody, including every single athlete, every person, including yourself, Elisabeth. So I applaud you for doing your work, because it's not easy on like Megan Scremin or RJ, in that matter of fact, or anybody in that state of mind, is that particular moment of realizing about the discipline and open-mindedness and listening and taking the time with certain things. And with that being said, is who has ever met me? Honestly, like who has ever met me? That I have always say that all the time. And I'm okay of saying who has ever met me. Not a lot of people knew who I am. Not everybody knows my story. And the thing is, I want people to know my story. I want people to realize that I am more than what you think that I am. I don't define myself as somebody who knows as much as other people does. Like, I don't know the level that Mackenzie has, or Megan, or Jason, or RJ, but I know what works for me. I know how I learn and listen.
And that, it's so amazing what you just said, because that's why I created the Respect Project, because I want everybody to tell their stories on behalf of other people, because what you just said is going to save and help so many people. You all, every single one of you have expressed something so necessary to be heard by, even if it's just one person, you've just changed a life because of what you've just expressed. Daniel here said, what advice does Hanna have for future SO athletes to be hired as service ambassadors at United Airlines? I mean, I think you just answered a lot of that, but if you want to jump into that question, I mean, first of all, you're reminding me to be more disciplined and have more confidence. That's for sure. I think that's some pretty good advice for future ambassadors who want to work at United Airlines. Do you want to add anything to that?
Sure, and I think it's like for any job. It doesn't have to apply to United Airlines. It can be for any job. And I will go back to saying who has ever met me or have ever witnessed other people's stories, because not everybody has witnessed everybody's stories. Not everybody has walked through other people's shoes, if you ask my honest opinion. And to go with that, I think involve people with ID, like intellectual disabilities, in application and interview as well, because that's also highly important to involve everybody. That's what Special Olympics does. We involve. And with that being said, for the advice that I also have is just breathe. Don't overcommit. Tell yourself that you are enough. Believe in yourself. And in closing, I will also mention is keep working hard, show these companies what we can do.
That's right.
What
That's
do you
right.
want to do in the future? That's the question I have for all of you. And not just that, but the other question I have is, what impact would you want society today? So what would your impact be for the society today? And without that being said, I just want to mention all those things because I just think that it's just a core value that everybody should live by. I have lived by this my entire life. I want people to take me seriously. I don't want them to like throw me on a side cold. I'm not a prize to be won. I'm a person first.
A person that's not just disciplined and confident, but you're self-reflective, self-aware, humble, compassionate to others, compassionate to yourself. These are qualities that I can see making, first of all, anybody who knows you, all of you, you're all so wonderful. But everything you just said, this is the kind of leadership that we need to show other corporations that, you know, that this is the kind of environment that we can enrich. And I know somebody here specifically said, what advice do you have to approach businesses? You know, and Jason responded, employers that are truly inclusive are employers that lead. I'm sure anybody that's here that has a company that doesn't know how to be more inclusive, if you have questions about that, if you feel lost, if you claim that you are, but you know that you're not, and you want to be different, and you want to approach this in a really more real, authentic way, to use the word that RJ and Mackenzie used, authenticity. I know that, is there a way, Jason and Megan and Mackenzie, Hannah and RJ, for companies to reach out and get guidance from Special Olympics on how they can improve their practices? And
Absolutely. We've got a ton of resources on our website, which is specialolympics.org. You can follow us on just about every social media channel platform by just looking up at Special Olympics, pretty consistent across the board. And I think what's incredibly important is for companies to understand first, in order for them to get comfortable, they need to be a little uncomfortable and
Right.
admit what they don't know. Know what you don't know. I mean, that's ultimately what it's all about. And we want to make sure that people who do not have somebody with an intellectual disability in their circle of friends or within their family understand that this movement is for them as well, because there is so much that everybody can learn in getting involved in a unified way to be much more inclusive as a society. And that's one of the reasons why we start with sport, because it gives us the opportunity to have people with and without intellectual disabilities to play together, to understand what it means to learn from one another, to have a symbiotic relationship so that there is learning across the board. And that's where the comfort really comes from. And that model is something that we'd like to have companies embrace all throughout the world, throughout every industry, throughout every community, is that unified environment. And we know that when that is in place, companies that employ people with intellectual disabilities, they see positive business impacts. The community sees positive impact. We see improved morale in the employee base across the board. The products, the services, and the bottom line, they all increase and progress. So in addition to doing what's right, it's something that can be very beneficial to the employer as well as the employee base. And I think that's incredibly important for everyone to really understand. Special Olympics does things in sport, health, education, and in leadership, which gives a lot of growth to what happens on the employment side. So my fellow athletes and certainly my colleague Megan, they are great examples of what people can do to be much more inclusive with the business environment. And Liz, I'm just so grateful that you and your team are by our side to really carry this important message out there far and wide, because without folks like you, we certainly wouldn't have an opportunity to amplify what inclusion means to the world.
Well, I appreciate that, Jason. I just want to reference Christine here, who said, how can, she's on the board of directors for Special Olympics in Southern California. And I think Jason just really answered some of those questions that you have. How can you improve and create, you said, is there a role that my local program can take to support inclusive work environments? I think, like you said, Jason, within Special Olympics community, outside Special Olympics community, let's keep the conversation going and keep, like you said, Jason, become uncomfortable first so that it can be authentic and real. And so we can not just promote inclusivity, but that we can actually really promote promotion within corporations, career advancement within corporations for people with intellectual disabilities. So it's not just that they're saying they're inclusive and giving one person with an ID a job so that they look as if they're inclusive. No, that they're committed to careers and leadership opportunities and growth and promotion of their employees with intellectual disabilities. I just want to make sure we're answering all of the questions here. Do you guys have anything else you want to add? Any thoughts that you have? I mean, this is a conversation I hope we can have again and again and again, because we have so much work to do when it comes to inspiring others to be more inclusive. And as you guys always like to say, we are the inclusion revolution. So let's keep having these conversations.
Thank you very much. One thing I would just add is to continue showing up imperfectly. And, we're here talking about this. I've worked at Special Olympics for 10 years. We employ athletes, we're movement for them, led by athletes, and we are learning every day. And so I think that's just really important to remember and recognize that we within the Special Olympics movement look to our athletes to guide us, to answer our questions, and we have to ask questions on ongoing basis, because this is not something that we within the Special Olympics movement have even figured out. So I think just a commitment to learning and growing and trying and practicing together is what it'll take.
I think that's really great, Megan, that you said that, because it ties in back to Hanna saying, just listen to me. I'm not a perfect person. I'm flawed. But I want to succeed. I want to thrive, hear me and see me. And together, I think if we can continue to communicate and commit to a more inclusive world, I think we can continue to grow together as we help navigate, changing the statistics around employment, being more inclusive. And so I continue this conversation with you guys. I thank you so much for your time and your friendship. It was so nice to meet you, Mackenzie, Hanna, RJ, Megan, Jason. Thank you for this opportunity to share in this conversation today. And just keep on being kind to each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys
Thank you.
rock. Keep on kicking butt.
Awesome.
Well, we're
Thank
doing
you.
that with your support. And with that being said, I'm all in for kindness and joy. That's actually my middle name, Joy Atkinson. And that's why I really want to emphasize that. And the one thing that I always like to add to any great conversation is, what does inclusion mean to all of us? Especially since I represent Special Olympics, strive for international global ambassadors, and also a health messenger and an athlete leader as well, since I do the athlete leadership university along with Mackenzie as well. So I just want to add that one question about, what does inclusion means to you?
All right, I'll go first. Inclusion means to me that everybody matters. Everybody is important. Everybody's voice needs to be heard, and everybody has the ability and the right to succeed and be happy and contribute and change each other's lives through love and mutual respect.
I think inclusion means everyone deserves a shot. Everyone deserves to be included, and what better way to do that than sports? I believe sport is the one thing in this world that no matter where you come from, no matter what you look like, no matter what you believe in, you're best friends with that person for 3 hours watching a game, wherever it may be. It's one of the most inclusive things. in this world, and Special Olympics, shows that every day, but it goes beyond just sports too.
I would say inclusion to me means that everyone has that sense of belonging and truly feels that they belong, and also that everyone has meaningful opportunities to succeed and lead in any way that they choose.
Mine would be loving and supportive. Support for being inclusive to everyone. And loving, because Unified is just a very loving place to be, and you're always happy. You're always happy if you're included in everything. So yeah.
Awesome. I get all.
All right, I guess I'm the last, right? So
You're the last.
yeah, I'm going to say that the true definition of inclusion and the true definition of community is inclusion and community the other way around. Without having complete inclusion, you really don't truly have a community. So I think it's incredibly important to recognize that community without certain individuals is a broken community. It's not a community. So I think they're almost interchangeable.
Yeah. Well, I think we all deserve to be here and to be happy and to be seen and heard. And I really love you guys so much. Thank you. This was really inspiring and so important to me. So thank you. Thank you, Jason, for creating this. Thank you to United for helping to partner with us, and just let's keep on keeping on and keep talking about these important topics.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
That's
Bye.
appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Take care.
Bye.
Oh, wait.